We've opened your minds. Let's open your hearts. Let's move on to the next speaker. And he's from a company called Xista Science Ventures, and the topic is called From Research to Revenue, Building an Innovative Ecosystem for Breakthroughs. One small comment, you can ask questions on Slido. However, directly after the session, we're going to have one last glorious panel, and we're going to use that panel to answer also the questions from this talk, because Bernhard is going to join us on that panel, just as a quick explanation. Everything clear? That's the part where you nod? Oh, yes, loving that. Great, let's move on. And here is Bernhard Petermeier. There he is. And welcome on stage.
Thank you, Daniel. Looks like I'm a super serious guy. Okay, so the topic of my talk is From Research to Revenue, which is quite, bold in a statement that you could do in a half an hour. And I originally, when they asked me to do this talk, I said like, okay, I can talk for 2 hours and then you will have a basic overview of what we are gonna do. They said, we'll give you half an hour. I said, okay, I do it in 20. Let's go for drinks afterwards. But the real topic is basically from research to revenue in a pressure cooker, right? Because this is what I can do in 20 minutes, and I'm happy to do so. I'm from xista Science Ventures. I think probably nobody knows xista Science Ventures here in the room. That's fine. That's also true when I go to Vienna. We are from Klosterneuburg, which is right outside of Vienna. When I go to Vienna and talk to people, normally I would say 80% of the people don't know xista, and that's fine. The 20% that think they know xista confuse us sometimes with the AIT, which is the Austrian Institute of Technology, which is also a great organization. But xista is really something different. And if I can take the 20 minutes just to tell you a little bit about xista itself, about xista and what we are doing there, and what we have achieved in the last 15 years, and with xista in the last 5 years, I'm happy, and I can go out and with the knowledge that 2 or 3 people know more about xista. So xista originated in around 2000, or the idea of xista originated from a Nobel Prize laureate, Anton Zeilinger, in 2002, I think it was, that he pitched the idea of xista at Forum Alpbach. The idea is to build in Austria, outside of the normal universities, a research center that is basic research driven, excellent in the world in what they're doing, and is conducting research based on curiosity, basically. And luckily, a lot of people picked up on that idea. So there have been discussions, feasibility studies, and other things. And Politik took a stance, and they, took a lot of money, a lot of grit. I have to really salute them. And they built an institute into the greenfield, where before there was nothing. And this is she. This is our campus, and I think it's really beautiful. It's, as I said, just outside of Vienna. We are a basic research institute that is conducting business really on the fundamentals of science. And at the beginning, there was the discussion, where should it be? Upper Austria, Lower Austria, Styria, Vienna, all wanted to have it. It's now outside there in Klosterneuburg. And this is 15 years ago. And when I said 2002, that was already only the ideas of the institute. So it really took until 2006 until it was formally formulated. There was an xista law even that was basically released. And during that years 2006, 2009, when the campus was really opened, this was a lot of discussions. I can remember that. I did my PhD during that time. Probably you can also. There was a broad discussion. Should we build really a new campus into the green field? Should we use that money to fuel our existing universities? And I'm happy that they did it the way they did it. So 2009, there was the grand opening of the campus. We had soon after first PhD students, so we are educating PhD students. We don't do any master's undergraduate studies, but start from PhDs. The budget has always been negotiated for 10, 15 years and has always been renewed. And during that time also we see rigorous evaluations from scientists, normally a group of top scientists coming from everywhere in the world, led by normally a Nobel Prize laureate, is basically evaluating what the institute is doing, if it's on a good track or not. Yeah, and until 2021, when the next budget was decided, and it was generously decided, I think, based on the achievements that have been there, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So our core missions are, as I said already, basic research in many fields, natural sciences, formal sciences. We do a lot of science education. We want to do best practices in science. So the institute has been built after the Weizmann Institute in Israel. So they took a lot of the good things, left out the bad things, hopefully at least. And we also want to do a technology transfer, so commercialization of whatever is coming out. And I can tell you, I mean, from basic research to revenue is really, really a long span. Taking a lot of convincing, a lot of work to get something done there. We have 63 ERC grants. That's a number they always proudly say because it's really good. I can show you later on how we compare it to other institutes. And we have 18 nationalities and group on campus, very, very international, and people coming from everywhere. And the growth is pretty staggering based on the results that we had up to now. So we'll be in 2036, we'll be more than 2,000 people on campus with 150 research groups. They started in 2009 with 37 people. I know a few of those 37 people, and the stories they're telling from that time when everything was a construction and tried to do research with all the noise, something like that was really cool. Even one person from that time, he always says he's the first postdoc of the institute. I don't know if he's just cheating to me or if it's really true, is even one of the founders that we backed then in a company. Yeah, so 80 groups now. Campus looks like on the left. It's been a sanatorium before, so treating mentally ill people, and only a few buildings have been there. So a lot of things have been built there, and a lot of things will be built there in the next few years. So we are growing by double in the next few years, in the next 12, 15 years. And that means constant construction. So everything that you see here that is not red is going to be built in the next few years. Yeah, we have 80 research groups at the moment, as I said already before. They are different than universities. In universities, you have departments, institutes. We do it differently. We have research groups. A research group is normally built around an assistant professor. They are normally pretty young, have a lot of potential. A group is cannot be more than 15 people. And when a prof is leaving, the whole group ceases to exist. So this guarantees that we can hire and build teams around the best minds that we can get. But just to show it here, we categorize, even though there is absolutely no categorization. So one of the principles is that we do research over any kind of fields. So these 80 groups are more like atoms, molecules that are floating around and trying to collaborate however they want. But just to give you an impression, we have around a balance between information system sciences, the life sciences, and then also physics and mathematics. Yeah, here are the 8 principles of xista. I think I mentioned already a few of them. So basic research, curiosity-driven. So anyone who's joining our institute is doing whatever they please. That can be a good thing, but can also be a headache, especially if you want to commercialize things. But this is one of the core principles, of course. Then we are building careers, academic careers. It's a very rigorous tenure system. So Whenever you're coming in, you have 5 years to prove yourself or you're out. And the only way of staying is to become a full professor, otherwise you have to leave. As a PhD student, as a postdoc, as an assistant professor, no matter, after 5 years you have to leave. And then diverse funding, funding also exploiting results, private parts. I mean, there is a huge a public amount of money, of course, that is coming from there. But my role and the role of my colleagues is also to bring the private money in. And we do that through entrepreneurship. We do that through building companies out of the technologies that we are researching. All the other things I already mentioned, I think PhD granting, the evaluation, international, and so on. So here's a measure of why we think that the Institute is doing really, really good after 15 years. And the left on top is something that came out in 2019, so only 10 years after the Institute has been formed. And it shows the nature index normalized on the size of the Institute. And the Institute has been number 3 in the world, from 0 in 10 to 10 years to number 3 in the world. That's simply amazing. And then some other metrics that we use is to show the ERC grants. ERC grants are really the highly respected, high money grants that you can get in the European Union. We have a success rate that is really blowing all the other institutes out of the water, and this includes the Weizmann Institute, this includes EPFL, ETH in Switzerland, which normally have been role models in this sense. So we almost have a 50% success rate with these high-level research grants. So in the middle, again, you see the fields, and this should show a little bit the flow between the disciplines, and I'm using it afterwards to also show the companies that we are funding and supporting in this spectrum, basically. Yeah, so 5 years ago, me and my partners, we basically had the feeling like we are sitting here on a gold mine because these people are amazing. They are researchers that are not just outstanding, they are just obsessed with science. They're working day and night. They want to they want to get to their Nobel Prize, whatever. They run after their academic careers. But we are sitting on this gold mine, but we don't have pickaxes and shovels because basically everyone is just focused on their careers, on their academic careers. An academic career is not really built for building companies out of your research, right? So these people have other things to do, and they are very busy. And it's quite a challenge to be honest, to convince these people that building a company in other institutes like MIT, for example, that's totally usual that a professor is building 1-2 companies out of their research, establish this thinking here with the academics. And we did a lot of work to do that. We've been supported with building this tech park, so we had at least the budget to build some facilities. This is what you see here. We have 2 buildings that are operational at the moment, but we are building a much larger campus, so also companies can join us. So companies that are research-affine, that want to be close to academic research and basic research, they can come to us, have a research group on campus. And some of them do already. So if you have a look at the lower left there, we have Google on campus. We cooperate with Microsoft at the moment. We have NVIDIA, Tech to mention an Austrian one. We have Meta, things like that. So things are coming together. You see it. They see the value of it. But it's really humble beginnings, to be honest. But this slide is basically where rubber hits the road. So this is showing what we are doing all in this ecosystem of trying to commercialize this gold mine that we are sitting on. And it's just a lot of things that we have to do. And we did it by dividing it into 3 different companies. The one is called xista Innovation, marked with the green color. This is basically our technology transfer company. So it's a single company. It's doing the typical tech transfer thing, even though we like to do it more in an entrepreneurial way than in a bureaucratic way. So there is a lot about training, about talking to academics, that entrepreneurship is really a worthwhile career path for them to do this. We invite top entrepreneurs who have been in the same situations, have spun out big companies or even failed out of academic research. We do trainings. We really try to bring the whole space on a different level, together with the usual IP and patent management that technology transfer has to deal with. But it must be clear that entrepreneurship has way higher chances of leading to high results in economic impact than typical IP and licensing work that usual tech transfer offices are doing. Then on the right upper we have xista Science Park. This is just managing all the infrastructure with all the lab. So everyone has access to xista's lab if they want to build a company. And then the last one, which is also where I come from, is the investment fund. So you can convince scientists to build a company, you can train them on what it's important to do, but in the end, what you need is really capital in order to deploy it to them and help them build really a high-tech company out of their lab invention. And this is really a challenge on its own. And we did that. And only if you have all these things, activities to come together, we have a chance of really making a difference in terms of entrepreneurship here in Austria and in Europe. We see ourselves as European investors. So one of the reasons why we think that tech transfer, Austria is doing amazing research, there's no doubt about it, and the same is true for Europe, right? But if you have a look at what the US is doing, so we compare here Harvard University with Max Planck Gesellschaft, Oxford University, ETH Zurich. If you have a look what kind of high impact studies they're doing, research they are doing, and then in the end, how many invention disclosures are coming out of that, and then in the next step from these invention disclosures, how much revenue is really generated, then you see that we are doing something wrong here in Europe. And it must be clear that there is way more potential in doing things than we do currently. And this is also the reason why we started this investment fund. Okay, that's probably a sign I should stop talking at some point. I get you. And there is just way more money also in the system in the US to support deep tech innovations and deep tech startups, because that's the fuel they need to grow. And I think I don't need to make the case that this is really important, because we have a lot of cases where fundamental deep research led to amazing companies. And it's sometimes a little bit pop culture that the idea itself, together with the research, made it all happen. It's really a combined effort of everyone in the ecosystem, of the universities, of the scientists, of the executives of the startups that are forming out of that, from the ecosystem like incubators, accelerators, to the venture capital funds who are really financing innovations. And yeah, this is what's happening definitely here, and specifically on the investment side, on people who have the capital and understand science. I think that's really something that is underserved. That was also our hypothesis, starting with xista Science Ventures 5 years ago. So we built this 45 million investment fund. It's financed by private, but also by the European Investment Fund and also a little bit of public money from Austria, in order to bring these innovations to the market. And we are the ones, so my colleagues, we are seeing ourselves as the scientists who have been in business, even founded startups themselves, and understand the science side, but also the business side in order to make that transition, to make really a difference besides our capital that we are deploying. And here you can see the companies that are coming out of the institute itself. So Ribbon Biolabs is the one that I was talking about probably first investment. That's already in a serious B state, so that's synthesis of long strains of DNA. That's a winning company, absolutely, no doubt about it. And we have two companies that have been co-founded by a few of our professors that are residing in the US. So Gia Networks is one of them, where we built a consensus algorithm from our cryptography group. And the founder of that is Bram Cohen, who is the inventor of the B2B, not B2B, of the peer-to-peer BitTorrent protocol, for example. And NeuroMagic is a great company coming out of MIT together with technology from xista on deep learning and making inference and training faster on normal CPUs. Then we have three here, which are more on the life science side. So this is more like drug discovery and neural diseases treatment. And then the last one's also an interesting one. So because that's a little bit in your field of interest, that's narrow line with lasers, so lasers that have really, really good frequency noise while being fully tunable to different frequencies. And those were just the ones that came out of the institute, but we invest outside of the institute. We invest from all universities. We even invest outside of Austria. We have companies from TU Wien, we have companies from TU Graz, from SEM, from Medical University in Vienna, from Innsbruck. We have investments in Sweden, in France, in Slovenia, and we go continuously out of Austria in order to make that happen and build exactly this ecosystem that we have tried here in Klosterneuburg in a smaller scale. This is what we have achieved. So with the 24.2 million that we have invested up to now, our companies have received grants in the amount of 60 million, and we have brought in external investors from all over the world, deploying capital of 143 million up to now in these companies. So we are attracting capital from outside of Austria to be invested here. And we can leverage our 24 that we invested up to now to almost tenfold. That's really an impact. So on the numbers, in 5 years, we built companies with almost 400 employees at the moment. 36% of them are women, 64 men. Many of them are coming from Austria, but we have a lot of nationalities and people from abroad coming working for us. All right, this is my last slide. I'll leave you with the challenges. I really don't want to make it nicer than it is. I think we are in the stone age of entrepreneurship and in the asset class of startups, investing in startups and building startups. So everyone has to do their thing in order to make it better. University need to promote more. Scientists need to think a little bit more about real-world applications of what they are dealing with every day. Startups, it's all about execution, in my opinion. Having a good idea is a necessity, not a grant for being successful. And also taking myself to higher levels, I think venture capital has to change a lot and has to get a lot better in Europe. And we are trying to do that. We have to be more open, give more direct feedback, how to get better, so entrepreneurs can really grow. And I hope that industry companies can be a little bit more open also to startups, even though they just have begun and don't have this high credibility thing. And then now I'm gonna start talking.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.